seated. This witness has been previously sworn to testify truthfully. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Becker, would you please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your name?
Yes. My name is James Becker.
And feel free to talk to them. You know, I'm going to ask you the questions, but they're the ones that need to hear your answers. So, can you just spell for the court reporter your first and last name, please?
Yes, James, James, Becker, Becker.
And if somebody would refer to Jim Becker, would that be you as well?
Yes.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. How are you employed?
So I work for Velocitor Solutions. I'm their vice president of product.
Can you spell that? Spell your
Velocitor.
Velocitor, yes. Velocitor, Velocitor. Solutions, Solutions.
And when we're here in court, it's difficult for me and everybody else, especially witnesses, to kind of make themselves slow down a little bit and talk, because the court reporter's taking down everything that you say, and we can't talk over each other. So we just kind of focus a little bit on doing that as we go through this process. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Now, with regard to Velocitor Solutions, what do you do for that company?
So I am the vice president of product. So I guide our product strategy, including our software, which would be mobile applications and our web platform, and then hardware integrations to go alongside that.
All right. And tell us, how long have you been working for this particular company?
I've been with Velocitor Solutions for 15 years.
And were you there at the beginning of this company, or were you hired by this company after it was already?
I was hired by the company after.
Okay. And so, since you've been employed there, has the company grown both in scope and also the different things that they do?
Yes, sir. Yes, we've grown in scope from our products to the hardware we work with to the employees we have and customer base.
And talk a little bit about that. Talk about the company itself, kind of what are the different things you do, and how many people work for you, that sort of thing.
Yes, sir. So Velocitor Solutions is a mobile software company. We develop mobile applications for customers with a mobile workforce. The company's been in business for 26 years. We have our main product is VTrack, which is our fleet management driver safety platform. We also have another product, Field Services, which is our mobile field software for, could be delivery, sales, or service in the field. And then we have some other minor product lines to go along with that.
And as part of the software that you offer to these fleets for mobile tracking, do you also, is part of what you offer to them, cameras that go along and utilize the software that you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
In addition to just being a standard type camera, are these something, what do you call the camera, the actual device that you use in the vehicle?
So it can be referred to as a dash camera. In this program for FedEx, it's a VEDR, video event data recorder.
Okay. So if I call it a dash cam or a VEDR, it's the same thing in your mind?
Yes, sir.
Does that do more than just record video?
So the device is designed to start recording, turn on when the vehicle is turned on. It will record forward-facing video and driver-facing video. The onboard device will have a storage card. In this case, the device has a storage card that is capable of storing 40 hours of video, and then it will overwrite sequentially. The device sends up GPS breadcrumb with a cellular radio that's embedded inside of it.
Okay, so you're going to have to slow down there just a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about what you mean by GPS breadcrumb.
Yes, sir. So it's the latitude and longitude of the device. So it has a GPS radio and antennas that'll connect to GPS satellites to determine its location, along with a cellular radio to communicate that data via the cellular networks to our cloud.
Okay, so embedded within the camera, you said there's a cellular device that communicates with the cellular network. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. And because those breadcrumbs, why do you think they call them breadcrumbs? Or do you know?
I don't know that I could answer that question.
But if
I mean, it's from the tale of dropping breadcrumbs to find your way back. So,
does it create a trail that you can then follow to determine somebody's movements later?
Section leading, Your Honor.
Go ahead and finish the question, and then don't read your
Well,
witness.
I'll rephrase. You said from the story about dropping breadcrumbs, what was the purpose of dropping the breadcrumbs?
so you can retrace your steps.
Right. And does the breadcrumbs that you're talking about allow you to do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So does it also have certain things that you would potentially call events?
Yes, sir.
And can you explain what you mean by events?
Yes, the device contains an accelerometer, which will detect G-force for events such as hard brake, hard turn, hard acceleration that are set at a threshold. Those events will be set up to our platform, and then we request the video footage from the camera at that time to be able to show what happened during those events and track additional behaviors that we note during those events. There's also a panic button for the driver to press, which would be a panic event to our system.
What would you call a panic event?
Usually drivers will use that for if they're in trouble, if there's an accident, if there's something that they want their management to see, they're able to press that button.
So for instance, if somebody was hurt like if a person had run into somebody, would they be able to press that button and notify management that this had happened and somebody needed to respond based upon it?
Yes, sir, that's the intent. The platform allows companies or users to set up notifications via email and SMS text based on events. So one of those events that they can use for notifications is panic, and they would be notified in near real time that the event occurred and be able to see the video footage from that.
Because if it's working properly and you have both of the cameras that you described, what should you be able to capture if that button is pushed?
Well, what we send as footage, or what we request from the camera footage when a panic alarm is pushed, is 30 seconds prior to the button being pressed to the point the button is being pressed. The goal is, as you can see, forward facing what was happening the 30 seconds before they pressed the button up until they pressed it, and also driver facing to observe anything that happened in the area of the driver's view, out the windshield, and then within the cab as well.
And the utility of that, you give all those possibilities of what can be used from your software. Do all potential users of that software and camera equipment, do they take advantage of all those opportunities?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you specifically about your relationship with some of the clients that you, I don't know if you call them clients or customers, but the people that you sell your equipment to and you sell your software to. What kind of companies are those generally?
They are typically a customer with a fleet. A fleet would be defined as a number of vehicles. At the time, it would have been 100 vehicles or more. So a business that has a fleet of vehicles that they want to track and help with their driver safety program. Today, we do much smaller fleets, down to as low as 5 vehicles, to provide the same sort of utilities as well. So really, it's a business with a fleet of vehicles.
Understood. So, do you have you're a vendor, or I don't know if you're a vendor, I keep using that word, but you, are the company that produces the camera equipment and the software. Are there other companies that do that same thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not maybe exactly the same way, but same type of thing.
Similar to the industry, yes.
Yeah, okay. And so within your customer base, do you have some larger companies such as FedEx?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you do all of the cameras for all of FedEx across the United States, or just certain areas, or what?
So we work with FedEx Corporation, which has several entities within them. FedEx Ground has independent service providers that they contract with to deliver packages and pick up packages. As part of this program, we are one of several vendors chosen that comply with the program that FedEx has aligned with on what events we would send and what data we would provide to FedEx along with that. And FedEx Express, we also provide cameras to, but again, not the sole provider.
So within the FedEx company, you said they have a different name for what we would call the dash cam, and that was VEDR, is that right?
Yes, sir. VEDR.
And what does the VEDR stand for again?
Video Event Data Recorder.
So within the FedEx company, have they established some protocols that their subcontractors would have to have these type of equipment within their vehicle in order to be a subcontractor for FedEx?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with a company by the name of Big Cosby
Yes, sir.
and also Southern Star?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what were those companies in relation to FedEx brand?
They were independent service providers.
Okay. And you call them within your industry ISPs, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's not internet related, it's independent service providers.
Yes, sir.
So both FedEx and Southern Star were ISPs, is that right?
No, sir.
No, okay. Not FedEx, but thank you for correcting me. Both Big Copston and Southern Star were ISPs related to FedEx Ground. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
All right. Did you have these video event data recorders in the different vehicles for both of those two ISPs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the specific location of the FedEx ground facility that you were working with in this particular case, and not address-wise, but general area, do you know where that is located at?
I don't.
Okay. But in the area, was it here in Texas?
Yes, sir.
Versus where you're from?
Yes, sir.
And where are you from?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
And is that where your company is based?
Yes, that is our headquarters.
Now, with regard to these ISPs, once those routes are assigned to whatever ISP that they have through FedEx, are they essentially independent from FedEx as far as who oversees their drivers and their vehicles?
Objection, Your Honor, I'm not sure this is within the scope of his knowledge.
I'll let him answer it if you know.
I would say it's my understanding that the management of those routes is the independent service provider, whether it's the owner or a business manager under their staff.
Now, under your contractual relationships with these ISPs, who owns the camera?
The ISP.
Okay. And as far as the data that is downloaded onto that camera, same is true, is that right?
The actual, I believe, per contractual with FedEx, the breadcrumb data is owned by FedEx, but the video footage is owned by the ISP.
Gotcha. So with regard to that, the driver doesn't have any ownership interest over any of that, correct?
No, sir.
All right. They're the ones that the data is being recorded based on what they're doing with the vehicle at the time, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about the specific date of, I believe in your case, it would be December the 1st of 2022. Do you remember that day?
Yes, sir.
Why is it that you remember that particular day?
I was in a meeting, and our customer support manager came into the meeting and asked for my assistance because they had a law enforcement call and they were not sure how to handle it.
So tell us what you did next.
I went to our customer support center, to the agent that was taking the phone call. They briefed me on what was happening, that there had been an abduction, and that there was video footage, and that they had, I believe it was an FBI agent on the line.
Okay. Now, before we go in any further down through what happened next, I want to ask you, are you familiar with the product, the V-Track product, and how it works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let's talk about that for a moment. What kind of information, just from the video itself, if you're watching a video off of one of these recorders, what kind of information would be available to you other than just what you're seeing on what's being videoed? What kind of things are you going to be able to see?
So the video includes an overlay that contains the serial number of the camera. It will include a timestamp in UTC or GMT time. It will include the speed of the vehicle and then the GPS coordinates as they're updated through that video footage.
And so, as you're watching the video, will you see the speed change based upon what the driver is doing?
Yes, sir.
What else would be changing as it's going on?
The time will change as it goes on, and also the GPS coordinates.
Okay. And with regard to the time, is that time in a specific time zone?
It is in UTC or GMT. They're the same.
All right, so just for purposes of the record, is UTC universal?
Coordinated universal time.
Coordinated universal time?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then GMT, what is GMT?
Greenwich Mean Time?
And are those the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And with regard to that time of year, specifically, late November, early December of 2022, what would be the difference in time between UTC time and time here in Texas, Central Standard Time?
So here will be 6 hours prior to UTC time.
And the way that that's noted often is like UTC -6, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if UTC time showed 23 or 11 p.m., you would have to back that up. You subtract 6 hours from that, and that would be 17, which
Yes,
would be what time?
5 p.m., sir.
5 p.m. Okay. So just so that's understood that what you're watching, the time's not going to be exactly the same as it is here, but the reason is because of what?
The reason UTC time is used is it doesn't change. We don't have the daylight savings time. You don't have time zones that a vehicle could cross. So that way it's a coordinated time that can be seen through footage.
And based upon your knowledge of the software, if you're able to examine a specific camera, specific downloaded storage device from that camera, are you able to tell whether or not you believe that is operating correctly and capturing the time correctly based upon the event data and everything else that goes into the video event data recorder other than just the video itself?
We would use additional items on our platform where we have the owner's time zone, which helps us determine that offset from UTC time.
And were you asked to, let me ask you, how are you able to get video off of the video event data recorder?
There's 3 ways to obtain video footage from a better camera. The first is through a cellular connection to download a video clip from the platform. At the time, our platform offered 30-second video clips. So you do a manual download, you find the time that you're downloading, and you choose to download and you wait for that video to be downloaded through the internet. Another option is to remove the storage cards and use a proprietary tool to play that footage, and you can export that footage. The third option is you can attach a USB drive to the camera itself and connect to the camera with the manufacturer's application and download that footage as well.
Now, what type of storage device is maintained within this video event data recorder?
It was a standard SD card for that model.
And when you say a standard SD card, a lot of people know what that is, but some people don't. So can you describe it, please?
I say standard meaning the size. I don't know how to describe an SD card, but today there's micro SD cards and there was mini SD cards, but this was a standard SD card, approximately 3 inches wide by 1 inch and maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick.
And were you asked to access remotely some footage from a particular vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did that particular vehicle relate to a particular driver?
Yes, sir, it was a driver.
Okay. And so what kind of information, you were at the point where you've been called out of the meeting and now you're going to talk to your people about what's going on. So pick it up from there and tell us how it went from that point.
I'll be honest, this wasn't something that had occurred in the past. So I think the first thing I tried to do was establish that the people on the phone were the FBI. I remember asking them if they could send an email so that I could verify their email address to determine that. The next piece is technically the footage is owned by the independent service provider. So I was able to, I think through that phone call, reach out or speak to that owner to verify I could release the footage, which he agreed. And then once the FBI I had received emails to know they were who they were, I started the process of trying to locate the footage in question.
Okay, so let's stop there for a second. The person you talked to, would that have been related to Big Topspin, the owner of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you remember that person's name?
I think Mr. Davis, sir.
Richard Davis?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was there another person that you were communicating with that was associated with FedEx ground facility?
I do not remember interfacing with anyone with that.
Okay, so you talked directly to Mr. Davis, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And if there was issues with one of his vehicles, he would be the one that would have the information you need to access that particular vehicle's SD card, is that right? Or better?
Mr. Davis would have had the ability himself to access that footage. If I remember correctly, they were asking us to obtain that footage on their behalf.
Understood. So, when you received that information, what information did you have to get from Mr. Davis in order to be able to know which camera that you were trying to access?
The vehicle number.
Okay. And where is the vehicle number located on the vehicle?
It's my recollection the vehicle numbers are on the back of the vehicle, above the back door. They may also be on the front of the vehicle, but from my experience, they're on the back of the vehicle above the door.
But somewhere on the vehicle, there's a number, and if you have that number, then you can access that vehicle and download remotely clips from that vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, if you're an authorized user with our software.
Were you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, understood. So, based upon that, did you get that information from Mr. Davis?
Yes, sir.
And did you then download clips or several clips or a clip off of that vehicle's video related to a certain time frame?
Yes, sir. We were able to view footage from a time frame, from the description of what the FBI had described. We thought that was the footage. We downloaded video footage, but unfortunately, the downloaded footage was an hour off because I was in East Coast and the owner was in Central Time. And because of the urgency of it, I took a screen recording of the video and sent it to the FBI agent with my phone. Sorry, I took a video of the screen with my cell phone.
All right, so you're looking at something on a computer, and you said you took a video of what you were looking at with what?
With my iPhone.
Okay, and then what did you do with that video that you took?
I sent it to the FBI agent, I believe, via text message. It may have been over email. I don't recall.
And once you had done, I guess let me ask you this. I want you to describe, you go into the room, you begin to try to download the video. You were given a time frame to look at. What did you see when you pulled up the video for that particular time
I believe it was a driver.
Just,
Which-
Your Honor, hearsay. I don't think that video's been admitted yet.
I'll let him answer the objections overruled.
It was a driver of a FedEx delivery truck, and there was a small child in the truck as well.
May I approach you, Ron?
Yes, sir.
All right, so based upon that, what you saw, kind of what's going through your mind at that point?
I don't recall. I mean, I think panic, to be honest. That's why I was having trouble downloading the actual footage, and the urgency from the FBI agent on the phone for them to be able to see what I was seeing.
And is this, what date, if you remember, is this taking place on?
I believe this happened on December 1st.
So this would be Thursday, December 1st, one day after Wednesday, November 30th, 2022, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once you send that video, did you stop there with what you were doing?
On that day, yes, sir.
Okay. So did you do anything else with regard to doing any research related to this particular situation?
So on the following day, I had seen on the news that they were still looking for Athena, and I thought, well, there's more that I have access to. So I took it upon myself to pull that vehicle back up in our VTrack platform. I was downloading footage, now knowing the time zone difference, and I started looking into the breadcrumb trail of that vehicle on that day, and I found several locations where the vehicle had stopped in the time frame that the FBI agents were speaking to me about. And so I took screenshots of that and provided that to the FBI agents as well, because I thought it might help in their investigation.
And can you describe these specific locations where you determined the vehicle had stopped?
I believe one location was at a gas station. One was at a bridge. To me, it looked like there was a boat ramp where it was stopped, and then I think one was just on the side of the road.
And did you communicate those, other than just a screenshot, did you communicate those specific locations GPS-wise to FBI agents?
Yes, sir.
All right, so once you have done that, did you receive some further communication from investigators related to how to access the data, the complete data off of the SD card from that particular camera?
Yes, sir. I was contacted by the Texas Rangers.
And do you remember the person that you spoke to?
Joe Espinoza.
All right. And when you spoke to to Ranger Espinoza, what was the subject matter of that conversation?
The subject matter was how to access the video footage that was on the SD card of the camera.
And did you give them some specific warnings and admonitions as to how to handle that particular item?
Yes, sir. The video format is a proprietary format that's on the storage card, and when you insert that storage card in a Windows computer, it does not recognize it as a valid file format, and you'll be prompted to format the SD card, which in previous situations where we had accident footage or other footage that people wanted to get on the SD card, that's detrimental to having the footage. So I had cautioned that there is risk when inserting that into your computer.
Okay. And the risk is that if you were to reformat that card, what would happen?
It will wipe the card. It will erase what is on the SD card.
And so, based upon that, did you and Ranger Espinoza make plans to do something other than just have the detective download that onto a regular computer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ranger Espinoza made plans to come to Charlotte, North Carolina, to our facility for us to work together to retrieve the footage from the storage car.
And did that take place?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, were you looking for just a specific time frame on that SD card?
My recollection from that day is we were looking for footage because of the UTC time. I believe Ranger Espinoza had the current footage of up until midnight UTC time, which would have been 6 p.m. In Texas, but he did not have the following day UTC, which would have been 6 p.m. to midnight on there, and so we worked to get that footage for him. So the complete day of November 30th, 2022 in Texas time.
Understood, because UTC time, it would already have been, at 6 o'clock in Texas, UTC would have been midnight.
Yes, sir.
It would have been a different day, UTC wise.
Yes, sir.
So are they separated out like that as far as how the videos are categorized one day and then the next day, but it's in UTC time?
On the cameras, they are. Yes.
So once you downloaded the rest of what would have been Central Standard Time, November 30th, 2022, did you give that download to somebody?
Ranger Espinoza took that video footage back with him.
Okay. Now, were you then contacted later to actually come to Texas to re-examine the SD card with the defense experts present to make sure that the complete download of everything related to the defendant that was on that SD card could be recaptured?
Yes, sir.
Can you just kind of explain the process of how that took place and what, if any, special equipment you brought with you in order to make that happen?
I brought with me one of the cameras. It's an older model camera that we do not sell anymore, but we had some. They have power supply because these are usually plugged into a vehicle, so they run on 12 volts and not your standard 110 in an outlet. So a power supply to be able to power that camera so that we could insert that SD card in that camera and use a USB drive to be downloaded directly from the camera to the USB drive.
I'm focusing on the day of November 30th, 2022, Central Standard Time, so that would include part of both days, UTC time. Were you able to recapture all of the video from that particular day, the entire route, from beginning to end, that Mr. Horner was driving that vehicle?
We were able to recover all of the video that was on the SD card from that day or days from the camera. I do not recall if there were any breaks where the camera may have turned off.
Okay, understood. And let's talk about that before we ask anything else. Are there parameters as to when the camera will turn off in relation to when the vehicle is powered down?
Yes, sir. The camera works. It will turn on with ignition, and then when the ignition is off, we have a timer set for the FedEx ISP program. It's for 15 minutes, so the camera will stay powered on for 15 minutes after the ignition has been turned off, and at that point, it will shut down.
Okay. So, in addition to the date of November the 30th, at that time, were you able to recover additional days on which Mr. Horner was driving that particular vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And if you remember the dates, do you remember the dates?
I believe there were a few days prior, but there were some breaks in that from a calendar perspective, and I believe the following day also had video footage.
And is it possible that it was both the following day and the day after that as well?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. The following day, on December the 2nd's videos, was there actually a different vehicle that was owned by Southern Star, I believe, or a different company, ISP, that was, the video was downloaded off of that?
There was a second card that was introduced to look for footage.
Okay, and were you able to access footage from that SD card as well, in which the defendant could be seen driving the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In order to do that, you had to get the SD cards from somewhere. Where did that come from?
Someone from the Wise County Sheriff's Department or law enforcement brought evidence in packages. They pointed out that it was sealed, I think more for the other people in the room, not maybe me, and opened those and had some sort of log to report that.
Okay. May I approach, Ron?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you two items. First is, do these in order of the exhibit. First is State's Exhibit 95, and the second one is State's Exhibit number 116. And do these appear to be the packages that were opened in your presence where the SD cards were retrieved from?
Yes, it's the same type of package.
And just looking at the different license plates and time frames, do those appear to be related to the vehicles that we're here talking about?
I don't see a license plate.
Okay, yeah, right here.
I don't know what the license plates were. The vehicle numbers would be what identify for myself.
Based upon the fact that they were open, you examined them and saw the videos that we were just talking about.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that these are where they came from?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, with regard to what I would call the abduction vehicle, were there 4 separate days or 4 separate days of routes driven by the defendant?
Objection deleting, Your Honor, I think.
I'll rephrase that. How many separate days were there of videos that were able to be recovered on that from that particular vehicle related to the defendant?
I believe there was 4 that we downloaded.
All right. And then on the final day, what we call the arrest vehicle, how many days were on that particular one?
I believe just 1 partial day.
Okay. You said that you brought these are already in evidence, so I'm not going to move to admit them, but you brought a special camera. Kind of explain the process of how that went down.
Yeah, it was not a special camera. It was just a camera, the same model that was installed in the truck in question, and a power supply to be able to power that camera, and an adapter cable or USB to be able to insert a USB drive into that camera.
And did you then, in the presence of myself and others, download those videos one by one onto, I guess it was a flash drive, USB flash drive, or a number of them, so that they could then be accessed through a regular computer, either through MP4 or AVI formatting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that something that was a quick process, or?
No, sir. It's quite time consuming to download the footage or export that footage. And we did it in segments of 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And is it a straight 1-for-1 download? You understand what I'm asking?
I do not.
When you're watching it, does it take 1 minute to download 1 minute of footage?
I don't know if it's exact. It's close to that. Yes.
So if there was 5 different days of routes, this took a significant amount of time to do that, correct?
Yes.
All right. Once that had been done, on the next day at the Wise County Sheriff's Office, what happened?
I believe that is when the defense joined the room and with a video expert that they brought in as well to get copies of the footage.
And were they given copies of the footage that you downloaded?
Yes, they were given jump drives that contained the footage, or a hard drive that contained the footage. I'm not sure which.
And did their expert also download the actual SD card in a device that he brought to be able to do that?
Yes, he brought a device to make a copy of the SD card.
Do you, based upon your expertise related to your own software and hardware that was accessed in this case, do you have an opinion as to the validity as far as the information, other than it being off by 6 hours because of UTC time, coordinate-wise, time-wise, and speed-wise? Do you believe that that video event data recorder was operating correctly?
Yes, sir.
and that it was capable of making accurate recording,
Yes, sir.
and that it did in fact make an accurate recording on each of the days that was downloaded.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes.
Mr. Becker, I want to thank you,
Yes, sir.
seriously, for what you did in this case. And I pass the notice.
Cross-examination.
Yes, sir. Morning, Mr. Becker.
Good morning, sir.
Good to see you again. I have a few questions for you. Okay, I know this was 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Mr. Horner's vehicles that we're talking about actually had that panic button back then?
The panic button was supplied. I do not know if it was installed, sir.
Okay, I just didn't remember us talking about that in your prior testimony, so you don't know that his vehicles had a panic button?
I do not know.
Another thing, earlier I think you testified in response to Mr. Gray's question about Southern Star being an ISP for FedEx. I don't think that's correct. Do you think maybe they were an ISP for Amazon?
I'm not sure, sir.
What about a company called Polaris? Does that ring a bell?
Does not, sir.
V-Track is the name of your fleet management system. I think you described it as a fleet management driver safety program.
Yes, sir.
And that software you use includes machine learning, correct?
Today it does, yes, sir.
Okay, I believe you had earlier testified that it included machine learning to alert the driver if they're not driving safely, such as using their phone, following too closely, not wearing their seatbelt, things like that.
Our current generation of cameras do have machine learning for events like you just described. The generation of camera that was in place at the time did not have those capabilities. It was accelerometer-based events.
Do you recall testifying about the operation of those cameras in December?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the
Do you
question?
recall testifying about the operation of the cameras in this case in December?
I can't recall specifically if that was a question I responded to or not.
Do you remember when you described the EVRs, and what does that stand for?
Video event data recorder, sir?
And at that time when you were asked what they do, you talked about them recording events. So now it's your testimony that they don't, the cameras at that time that we're talking about don't record events.
No, sir. The cameras do record when the vehicle is turned on. The camera turns on and starts recording to its internal storage. It then will stay on until 15 minutes in this case after the vehicle is turned off. It will send, that camera in particular sent events such as hard brake, hard turn. That camera had the functions to be able to send events for hard brake, hard turn, hard acceleration. It just wasn't the expanded set of events that we have in products today.
Okay, so it's your testimony today that those cameras only dealt with the driving features of the vehicle, not what the driver was doing.
So the events were based on accelerometer events of the vehicle, so G-force of the vehicle. The video footage was forward-facing, driver-facing. As part of the FedEx program, we have a video review center where when those events are retrieved, we review those events and we mark for behaviors. And some of those behaviors are driver-facing behaviors. As an example, if a driver was using a phone and a hard brake occurred, we would mark that hard brake event as driver using the phone.
So, but even then, it was sending that data to the cloud.
The
An
event,
event.
the device would send an event and our cloud retrieves a specific time based on an event. So for events, the standard is 6 seconds before and 6 seconds after the event, so a 13-second clip. But as an example of the difference would be a panic event, we do 30 seconds before up until the event.
Okay, and the purpose of that, making that 13-second clip is so that the ISP or whoever your client is can review those clips.
Yes, the clients can see what was happening before the event was triggered and after a short period of time.
And I believe you testified for so that they could do any kind of rating or any kind of coaching they needed for the driver.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
They could do ratings or coaching of the driver based on that event.
That is correct, sir.
And FedEx is a client of yours,
Yes, sir.
and you provide FedEx with these visual event data recorders.
So FedEx does utilize our video event data recorders in some of their vehicles. Yes.
But FedEx requires their contractors, their ISPs, to use these VDRs.
Yes, sir.
Now, you talked about those contractors for FedEx can remotely pull those videos and download them.
Yes, sir.
So now that would mean that if the driver had their phone out or anything like that, those would get recorded as an event. But you're saying for these cameras, it would only be the hard turns, the hard brakes, the speeding, things like that.
Yes, sir.
And the contractor we're talking about here was Big Topspin.
Yes, sir.
And all of their cameras were equipped with all their vehicles were equipped with Velocitor cameras based on the FedEx requirement.
I believe that all of their vehicles, I cannot confirm that. It's not a requirement that all the vehicles have the same vendor such as Velocitor Solutions.
The vehicles in question today, though, had your cameras.
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony before and today that Big Topspin was not using any of those download features.
When I looked into it, there were no downloads from the owner.
And you testified today that Mr. Davis needed you to access or asked you to access the video for him, even though he would have had access to it.
I think I asked for his permission, sir, via the phone.
To your knowledge, did Mr. Davis ever access those videos?
To my knowledge, no.
But he could have.
Yes, sir.
And this is a fleet safety program.
Yes, sir.
And it's meant to monitor the driver's behaviors.
Yes, sir.
You also testified previously that these video cameras can be viewed in real time. Would that include the video cameras from that day?
Yes, sir.
So not only could you download data of the driver's performance, you could download data of those specific 13-second events, but you could also monitor drivers in real time.
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, Topspin wasn't doing any of these things.
I wouldn't have any ability to see if they
Just
used
going
it
to
or not.
protect the relevance as to whether they were or not. I think he's going to answer this particular case, and I just object.
Overruled.
You want me to repeat that?
Yes, sir.
I think I was asking with, to your knowledge, Topspin wasn't taking advantage of any of those features, reviewing the downloads of the events, reviewing in real time, doing any other monitoring.
So from my analytical perspective, the tools we have in place, I can see if a user has logged into the system, and we would be able to see if there were videos downloaded. It's my recollection I did not see either of those.
That's what, Shane.
Redirect.
Just one further thing. When you downloaded that original video that you described before, did you download other clips as well for the FBI?
I believe so. I don't know in particular. I'd have to look at, I had a log that I sent. That's what we have.
Okay, all right, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Gold,
Nothing further, John.
Mr. Becker, PhD, finally.
Can we approach?
Okay.